everyone. You're watching News Epicenter with me, Maria Shakil. Ahead of the crucial elections that will set the tone of the 2024 Lok Sabha battle, this is the biggest scoop of 2021. We have accessed the list of names of those who are likely to be accommodated in the new Modi Council of Ministers. When it comes to the BJP camp, former Assam Chief Minister Sarbanand Sonowal, Rajya Sabha MPs Jyotiraditya Scindia, Narayan Rane, as well as Bengal leaders Shantanu Thakur and Nishit Pramanik are expected to be inducted in the new Council of Ministers. In a bid to balance regional equations, BJP allies are also being accommodated. Apna Dal Chief Anupriya Patel and LJP's Pashupati Nath Paras are likely to be given the Council of Ministers berth. The JDU seems to be playing hardball for the moment. Nitish Kumar is demanding 2 cabinet berth and 1 MOS post, while the BJP is only willing to give them 1 cabinet berth and 1 MOS post. Multiple NDA leaders are in the capital but remain tight-lipped. Meanwhile, 8 new governors have been appointed, including Union Minister Thawarchand Gehlot, who has been given the charge of the governor of Karnataka. As the buzz continues over the cabinet reshuffle, the big question emerges: who will make the cut and what is the wider message and thinking behind the reshuffle on the road to key electoral contests from next year? We are now getting big breaking news on what will be the nature of the new Council of Ministers. CNN News 18 has learned that this will have a special focus representing the Garib, the Soshit, Pidit, Vanchit and Adivasis. Government sources are telling CNN News 18 that there will be a record representation of SC communities and 24 OBC ministers in all. The plan is to involve and include even the smallest communities like the Kolis and others as well. The focus has been given on each state and the regions within big states. Let me give you an example here. For example, Bundelkhand will find a representation, Purvanchal, Konkan, all the regions will have some representation or the other in the new team Narendra Modi. There is also a focus on the education of these ministers. They will be PhDs, MBAs, postgraduates or professionals. The representation of women is also being increased. The average age, and this is very important, the average age of the new team Modi is set to be the lowest in the history of independent India. Special attention will also be given to those who have administrative experience in the state or in various ministries. So this is how the thought is that has gone into this team Narendra Modi. Team Modi 2.0 will be looking like. Payal Mehta is joining me live. Payal, so the big focus, of course, is that every community has to be represented. These new ministers will be PhDs. They will have the background of MBAs. They will have the background of good education qualification. The focus, of course, is on the age as well. What sources in the government are telling us is that the average age of the new council will be the lowest in the history of independent India.
Well, of course, Maria, absolutely right, because the Prime Minister in the last Council of Ministers told all his colleagues that it is important to, finish the work that you've really started. So action and work needs to happen on a mission mode as well. For that, you need younger generation, you need people who can come up with different ideas, you need people who can come up, who are willing to adjust to different atmospheres as well. So that is something which is obviously being looked into. And of course, caste dynamics has always been very, very critical as far as, the country is concerned. But in particular, given the fact that you have Uttar Pradesh elections and you have Gujarat elections also coming up in the next 1 year's time, and obviously the government wants to make sure that they give representation to everyone. You spoke about OBCs. One of the biggest OBCs leader in the government is Prime Minister Narendra Modi himself as well. So that's where it really stands. Of course, more representation being given to the women is also going to be extremely critical, given the fact that this time around you have maximum, maximum representation that's really happened in the history of India as far as women parliamentarians are concerned. So that's something which also has to be looked into. We do not still know what's the final framework as far as Prime Minister Narendra Modi's cabinet is concerned. But of course, all of these things have been taken into account. There have been multiple exercises that have happened over the last fortnight or so. Meetings have been happening. Review meetings have been taking place. Separate meetings between BJP, top brass, including BL Santosh, JP Nadda, Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Of course, Rajnath Singh also being present in a couple of those meetings, and also Amit Shah as well. So obviously, the government taking this up as a very, very serious and a very long drawn exercise, because we don't do a reshuffle every now and then. This possibly is going to be the only reshuffle as we lead up to 2024. So the Prime Minister is looking out for a new team with a new vigor, with a new sort of zeal to perform for the cause of New India. Because remember, in 2022, we also hit the 75th year of Indian independence. It's a very, very special occasion as far as Prime Minister Narendra Modi and his government is concerned. And they want to show the world what New India could actually be like.
All right, Payal, thank you so much for joining us. Let me bring in my guest this hour. Rahul Verma, fellow at the CPR, Sheila Bhatt, senior journalist, someone who tracks the BJP and the government very closely, Neerja Chaudhary, political analyst, Radhika Ramaseshan, columnist. Radhika, the movement that has happened of Thawarchand Gehlot, 73-year-old, is sent to a Raj Bhavan in Karnataka, again a crucial state for the BJP. They are in power there, but the internal dynamics is something that the party would not have wanted the way it is playing out there. And the message is that the age cap is something that they will be focusing on. And as sources are telling me right now is that the new Council of Ministers will have the lowest average age in the history of independent India.
Yeah, well, if demography is a concern, or in addition to caste and gender and other factors, it is to be welcomed. Of course, all of us would like to see a young cabinet, and as Payal said, this could well be the last big reshuffle in the lead into 2024. I'm not sure about that. My own sense is that there will be another shuffle, but you mentioned Thawar Singh Gehlot. He is an SC from Madhya Pradesh. And I don't think he's made much of an impact either, as he was good in the organization, by the way. I don't want to take anything away from him, but as a minister, I don't think he's made much of an impact. Of course, Karnataka is a very crucial state. It is perpetually in tumult. I mean, I can't think of one day when Mr. Yedurappa has not been challenged from somebody or the other. Having said all this, I believe that the accent of this shuffle is going to be on the 5 election-going states, particularly Uttar Pradesh. You described the Shoshit, Vanchit, Peerit Samaj. Bundelkhand you mentioned. Yes, it is a very important region. And you also mentioned OBCs and SCs.
Yes.
Now look, I'll quickly add, the BJP's mainstay in Uttar Pradesh are the OBCs.
Yes.
There's no question. That is unraveling a bit in the Yogi Adityanath regime, because there is a perception that there is too much emphasis being given to the Rajputs, to one community. So the BJP cannot afford to lose its mainstay, namely the OBCs as well as the SCs. The non-Jatav SCs, of course, they voted for the BJP since 2014. It's well established. So these are two big chunks that the BJP has to get together. So if they have ministers representing these communities, and more importantly, hands-on ministers who are given the authority to work in their areas, to work on policies and programs that will benefit these groups. Because let's not forget, schemes like the Ujjwala and Jan Dhan have benefited the BJP.
Absolutely.
In the past. The elections in UP haven't just been about religious polarization, to be fair.
Yes.
Religious polarization.
It is about benefiting from the schemes of the government as well. And we have seen that, Radhika, in multiple elections. I have seen that women talk about Ujjwala. They have talked about how the schemes of the government have reached them as well. So the question that I'm asking is, while we are looking at regional representation and all that focus that has been there, how critical it is for Narendra Modi's scheme of things and the BJP scheme of things to look at each state and also look at regions within the states, particularly at a time that they realize that in 2024, the new catchment areas have to be, brought in, and that includes Look East, where the BJP did make some gains in 2019, but they are looking to make further gains going to 2024.
Sure. Thank you, Maria. First, with every cabinet expansion, we talk about caste representation, regional representation, and representation of women. I think that's with all cabinet expansions, so it's not anything significant or different in this one. Second point, I think what we need to look for in the cabinet expansion is how many actual new ministers are going to be sewn in. So currently, the strength of the Modi ministry is 53, and they can take up to 78 or 80. Last time, the first Modi ministry actually had, after 2 rounds of expansion, 78 ministers.
Yes.
So, you can actually have 20 to 25 new additions, and that will, of course, take care of all these representation. You are absolutely right. The new catchment areas of East has to be sort of kept in mind, and not just basically in terms of like, new territories that can be gained, but also retaining some of the old places where BJP made inroads. So, for example, in Bengal, they have 18 MPs and currently only 2 ministers. I think there is going to be greater representation from Bengal and also UP. The third point, it's not just about the representation from the matrix you talk about, but also what we have seen in last 6 to 8 months. There has been some dissidence within BJP's state units, right? For example, Vasundhara is unhappy in Rajasthan. Radhika ji talked about Karnataka. Similar you saw in Uttarakhand or Tripura and other places. So some of these big leaders who have not been accommodated in the state or party organization, they also need to be accommodated in the cabinet. So I think, and the fourth one, which is more crucial and we have not yet spoken about, and this is just a hunch, we might see a change of guard in top 4.
Okay, Sheila Bhatt is back with us. Sheila, what is one area you'll be watching out for when the ministers are sewn in?
Thank you for this talk. See, first of all, we have to see this cabinet reshuffle from a broader point of view. I think in Modi's career, which actually technically started from 2001 when he became Gujarat Chief Minister, then in 2014 he became a Prime Minister. If you see closely, I think there was no other point when he was put in such a difficult and odd situation and circumstances all coming together. Right now, if you see what are the broad parameters which are on his table or before him. First of all, right now, his party has just recovered, rather recovering from a very political defeat in West Bengal. Two, I would say first one is economy. You tell me that from 2014 to this 7 years, when was economy so weak? And when India needed biggest of big efforts to put economy back on track. So first is economy, two is his party's morale due to West Bengal. Third is his own legacy also, that, what we have seen in Manmohan Singh government and many other governments, that in second tenure, by halfway, government feels the punch and punches from the opposition also. And now you can always see what a strong opposition is there every time something happens. And yesterday only entire India saw how everybody was empathizing with Father Swami's death and the circumstances in which he has died. So I think this moment is a very big moment for Modi, karenge ya marenge type of moment. And in these circumstances, when he is doing cabinet reshuffle, it is more than balancing on one hand caste and regional politics versus the competence and merit. So now, whenever it happens tomorrow, or I think day after, we will have to see how he has been able to balance competence, merit, and on the other side, which he has to do it, caste and regional. We are not away from reality. He cannot be disconnected with the reality of caste, and particularly when this Uttar Pradesh,
Absolutely.
Uttarakhand, Punjab, Gujarat, all elections are coming within 12 to 18 months. So I understand that, but I think as much as before nation, as much as before Indian people, and as same is the case with Modi, we are living in a challenging times, difficult times, tough times.
Okay.
And this cabinet reshuffle is just one of the I would say, ways of lifting the morale and putting things on the track.
Okay.
And particularly after second surge,
Yes.
I think we recovered some. Not many will agree, but demonetization. Then GST troubles happened. Adjustment to GST. Though I don't think GST is a failure, but still
Okay.
troubles are there.
Looking at various nature of challenges, Radhika, I'm coming back to you. We have seen today the governor reshuffle in a way, or appointments or transfer of certain governors that have happened in all in 8 states, and then reshuffle which is likely to take place in the next 24 to 48 hours. Are you also sensing that this is all building up to also a possible organization reshuffle as well? There are 5 posts that in the parliamentary board of the BJP that is vacant. There are several, BJP general secretaries who could be brought in the government as well. So all that is also linked to the various thoughts that could have gone behind this reshuffle that is going to take place.
Exactly, Maria, completely. This organizational reshuffle or expansion, if you call it, is also long overdue. I think Mr. Nadda just had one shot at it. He hasn't reconstituted the national executive. The BJP national executive has not met. Of course, it's very difficult in pandemic times, And I'm sure after this exercise, they will have a national executive meet before the next wave comes in. In the case of the BJP, just as in the case of the Communist Party of China, the government and the party are very deeply linked. I do not see a great division or schism between the government and the party of the kind that you saw in the UPA. The Congress was Congress, and there was the UPA, Manmohan Singh government. In the case of the BJP, the two are integrally linked, especially with Modi, who's essentially an organizational person, and Amit Shah at the helm. So there will be an organizational reshuffle. Blanks, there will be filling in the blanks, but keeping in mind that there is a slew of elections coming, and then Gujarat, and
yes.
Then of course.
Yes, so this is all building up to elections and also the big battle for 2024. Rahul Verma, this is also an attempt perhaps by Prime Minister Narendra Modi to send a message that this is a big NDA umbrella. Look at the only party which is outside BJP, which is part of the Council of Ministers at present, that is the RPI. So do you think there'll be an effort to send that message that the smaller parties, the smaller allies will also be represented besides the JDU, which is of course playing hardball at the moment?
No, sure. I think that's another task cut out for the Prime Minister, because as you rightly pointed out, there is only one representative from the NDA at the moment. So reaching out to JDU, in LJP, Apna Dal, and perhaps other allies, especially, you never know, going ahead in 2024, BJP may need to bring certain more partners in other states, and you would want to signal that the party is welcoming to smaller parties and not going to basically, treat them in a big brotherly attitude. I also think, electoral pragmatism is always going to be part of that cabinet expansion, and
yes.
We shouldn't, but I think there are two important things. One, as Sheilaji pointed out, about the economic concerns. So one, we should be looking towards whether only the representational angle would be looked for, or also the performance angle. Is Modi going to axe certain ministers who have not been high performers and bring in some new faces who can basically steer the economy in a direction which of course bring electoral dividends, but also moves country on a electorally more, economically more sufficient line.
Okay.
I think one more point which I want to mention. So, and this is not, I think, parties and governments are always interrelated. For me, at the moment, the bigger concern is whether Modi is going to basically, bring some of these dissident voices and accommodate in the ministry, or will say, state units, figure out all these things among yourselves.
Okay.
Do not bother.
But the fact that B.L. Santosh, who's organization general secretary of the BJP, he traveled to various states where particularly there is these are, murmurs of dissent that's happening, is a message that he has all the feedback that has come from various states before the larger contours of this Council of Ministers that has been decided. Neerja Chaudhary has also joined us. Neerja, what will you be watching out for when the ministers are sworn in?
Look, I see it in a certain context, Maria. One, that it is midway Modi's term. It comes at a time when, there have been setbacks in West Bengal in the COVID handling of the government. And so they have suffered a loss of support. So they are doing stock taking, and this stock taking exercise has gone on for many, many hours. And it will encompass not just cabinet reshuffle, but from all accounts, organizational reshuffle. And we saw some governors move around and be appointed today. So it's one whole that they're looking at. And they will also look at a new theme, because what they have in mind are the 2022 elections, 2023 elections in the northern states, and 2024 election. So whether, certainly I think he will try and go for young people, for women, for Dalits and SCs, SCs and STs. And what was his theme in 2014? And that some of that ground has been lost of late. So what I would look at is not just whether a Scindia is coming in because their promise was made to him, and also it's a message to Madhya Pradesh, and also it's a message to potential entrants that we will take care of you from other parties. I would look at that, but I would also look at, who gets placed and who are the new people they pull out. Because, if you're honest, Maria, when we look at the cabinet, you and I will know, except the very discerning, we will know only of a dozen names of ministers that we can think of.
Yes.
Others we don't know. We don't know what they're doing.
That is true. That is true. That is actually true.
The Modi cabinet is Modi and Amit Shah and a dozen others. It is not the 70 odd people.
Yes.
And we don't know what they're doing. We don't know.
Okay.
We don't even remember what portfolios
I'll
they
give
have.
the final words to Sheila Bhatt. Sheila Bhatt, of course, there are several aspects that we'll be watching out for when the swearing in takes place. And of course, what is the nature of reshuffle, in the sense that over 10 ministers who have more than one portfolio, who will get that portfolio, which is the part of portfolio which remains with them. When you say specifically about the legacy of Prime Minister Narendra Modi, why do you think it is so important to send that message of legacy at this juncture?
See, after 7 years and with so many difficulties in front of common man is really upset with 100 rupee petrol. It will be touching in many other cities, already touched in Bombay. And there are many such things, and Modi must be knowing much more than what we know, because he must be having the real statistics before him. So I think most importantly that he right now is doing cabinet reshuffle from position of weakness, not strength. But out of doing this exercise and many other decisions, he would like to regain his position of strength. It is not that he has lost his big catchment area in waters and all that. I'm not saying that. But the stark reality before the country are so real that he cannot ignore that. That's why I'm saying. And if if the BJP or Modi is not accepting that, then it will be their problem. So I'm saying that these are very important times, and only hardly 3 years. 3 years is not a very big long time to achieve many things and the promised development. So I think this cabinet reshuffle, like I expect like many more Stanford or Harvard and Wharton graduates in the cabinet.
Yes, that's
maybe Ashwini Vaishnav type of people as MOS Finance.
Yes.
So something should move and may move. So that's why I'm saying, and this time also whatever is done and whatever the spin of the cabinet reshuffle is given, it will have a direct impact on Uttar Pradesh election and many other.
Yes.
So these are a very vulnerable times for BJP and Modi both.
Big challenges ahead, certainly. Sheila Bhatt, Neerja Chaudhary, Radhika and Rahul, thank you so much for your time, and thank you for analyzing a potential cabinet reshuffle. When is it likely? We'll have to wait and see. Remember, it's Prime Minister, Home Minister Amit Shah and BJP President JP Nadda who perhaps know about the contours of that all of us are making informed speculation or guesses. That's all from me. Thanks so much for watching.